in the absolute sense, there will be many people in the presence of the Lord to rejoice with all the redeemed forever and ever. And it could well be there will be many billions of people. If the Lord tarries and does not return, perhaps for many thousands of years from now, it could very well be that at the end of time, those who end up being forever in the presence of God in heaven, it could be many billions of souls. But relatively speaking, compared to the vast masses of humanity, it will be few. In a comparative sense, it will be few. Now, why is that? Why is it that the majority of people who have ever lived will not be saved, will not live with God forever in heaven? Well, that is addressed in a similar statement that Jesus makes in the Gospel of Luke, in Luke 13. And that is going to be the focus for my study with you this morning. And this is a passage that mentions the idea of entering the door as well. And I've addressed this passage in another context before in another lesson. But it's interesting here that the Lord gives us some insights as to why there will only be few in heaven. And so I want that to serve as our title this morning. That's the title for our lesson. Why will few be saved? So if you're taking notes, you can write that at the top of the page. Put it there with a question mark after it. Why will few be saved? So first of all, let's notice the question that was asked that prompted Jesus to address this. So Jesus is making his way to Jerusalem. This is in the part of Luke, this long section, this long narrative section that makes up the central part of the Gospel of Luke. The travel narrative, it's called, where Jesus is moving toward Jerusalem and his destiny with the cross. And we're told here, beginning in verse 22, Luke 13, beginning in verse 22, he went on his way through the towns and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And someone said to him, Lord, will those who are saved be few? Now, he's addressing a Jewish audience, and we can see from the context that it was apparent that they believed that since they were in a covenant relationship with God, and that they would be among the very few who would be saved. And perhaps that's what is causing the question to be raised, that kind of thinking. It seems to be so because of the way that Jesus answers the question and what he says in relationship to it. But we're not going to explore that, but I just wanted you to notice, though, what Jesus said in response to that question. What was the Lord's response? He said to them, strive. Now notice, he doesn't answer the question directly. This is often the case with Jesus, right? He doesn't answer it directly. But he says, strive to enter through the narrow door. And now, instead of telling them about yes or no, there will be just a few saved, he talks about many who will be lost. For many, I tell you, will seek to enter and will not be able. We'll return to that in a moment. But now, notice Jesus as he continues. There's a warning that he gives here. Let's look at the warning. He says now, speaking parabolically here, he uses a parable. Well, once the master of the house has risen and shut the door, and you begin to stand outside and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, open to us, then he will answer you, I do not know where you come from. Then you will begin to say, well, we ate and drank in your presence, and you taught in our streets. But he will say, I tell you, I do not know where you come from. Depart from me, all you workers of evil. And in that place, when you're sent away from the Lord, if obviously the Lord is referring here to the judgment day, and if we are sent away from the Lord in that day, then we will be lost in hell. And Jesus describes that as a place, he says, in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. a very frightening metaphor to suggest the terror of being sent away from God for all eternity.